Good Sunday morning and welcome to Rochester in Focus. I'm Lynette Adams. If you were to guess how long a woman has to work to equal a man's salary for 12 months, what would you guess? You may be surprised by the answer. Coming up, we'll talk with members of the Women's Pay Equity Coalition. Studies show the average black woman in New York earns 65 cents for every dollar that a white non-Hispanic man makes. For a Latina woman, it's 56 cents to a dollar. It adds up to more than $20,000 a year in lost wages. The Pay Equity Coalition hosted a rally this month to raise awareness. I sat down via Zoom with local co-founder Yaversha Roman and members Sasha Mitchell and Sarah Timmerman, who is also the president of the local Noun chapter. Here's our conversation. Let's start out the conversation. Black Women's Pay Day. Just a few weeks ago, you had a rally to bring attention to this issue. Talk about this issue. Why is this separate from just women's pay equity?
The focus on women of color is that while equal pay or pay equity is a key issue for women, no matter their intersection, no matter where they are, Black women in particular are given the attention specifically on this day because we know in Rochester, New York, a majority of households that are living under the poverty line are Black female led. And if we're trying to talk about lifting families out of poverty, lifting our community up out of poverty, talking about Black women's equal pay is vital to that conversation.
What's interesting to me is you hold this rally in August because that's how long a woman has to work, right? To equal what a man is paid. Talk about that.
Rochester Pay Equity Coalition highlights various equal pay days, but in August every year, it takes Black women this year up until August 3rd to earn what a white non-Hispanic male earned in the previous year. Another example would be October 21st of this year is when Latina women earn that of what a white man earned in the previous year for the same work. And it's just, a really hard fact to swallow that, Black women have had to work longer than men to earn the same amount of money. It's roughly 20 months. So it took a Black woman, and that's what we highlighted this Black Women's Equal Pay Day, that it took a Black woman on average about 20 months to make the same amount of pay a white man made 12 months of the year previous.
We're focusing on women of color, African American women, but this really is a broader issue for all women, is it not?
That's something that we try to highlight at NOW is how much lifting up the woman's income and getting equal pay for women really helps the whole family because women are more likely to spend their money on their children and on the family. And the average family in poverty is led by a single woman. And so if we want to lift people out of poverty, if we want to address the epidemic of kids going hungry, of people not knowing where they're sleeping at night, you really need to address equal pay.
So then basically you're saying this trickles down. It doesn't just affect that woman, but it trickles down and it affects her family and it can become generational.
In 2021, women are still being paid less than their male counterparts. Asking for more pay, we're just asking for equal pay. Women are going to work every day and receiving, $10,000 less than the man that's sitting in the cube right next door to her. And specifically right now, in the middle of the pandemic, we have seen these pay disparities exacerbated. We've seen that many women are having to leave the workplace. So unemployment for women is the highest it's been since the 1980s. And then women are in the helping profession for the most part. They are essential workers who are getting still underpaid to their male counterparts when they show up to work every day and care for our loved ones. For an example, they are still being underpaid. The data shows.
This is systemic. There is a system that is put in place to benefit one group above all others. And while this hierarchy might hurt others more so than other people, there is still a system put in place to make sure that the patriarchy is benefited the most. So I'm not anti-man. I love my husband, but in order for me and him to have a thriving family, according to like the American dream, we both need to get paid the equal amount of money so we can do what we think we should be able to do with our funds. If you want to look at why this is there is a structure that is put in place primarily operating in our places of employment on how we're hired, how the conversations happen, how are we offered the position. And a lot of times, if you are a woman that's looking for a job and the negotiation process doesn't yield what you think it should, you're less likely to try and buck that up because you need that money for your family. So there is a system in place, and it kind of plays on women.
So what could level the playing field for women? More of our discussion on women's pay equity when we come back. Welcome back to Rochester in Focus. This morning we're talking pay equity. An African-American woman has to work 20 months to equal the 12-month salary of a white male. A Latina woman, 22 months. Pay disclosure could change this. Here's more of my conversation with members of Rochester's Pay Equity Coalition, Yerversha Roman, Sasha Mitchell, and Sarah Timmerman. What is the awareness that we need here? What is the reason why women are paid so much less than men, oftentimes doing just as much work, more work? Why?
There are definitely tools, right, that we talk about. We talk about negotiation workshops. We talk about ways to learn how to negotiate better. And that's, a tool that you can have in your tool belt per se. But really, one of the things that we know is that there are policies and practices that are in place right now that make it really difficult for women specifically to receive equal pay. Something that the Pay Equity Coalition fought hard for in 2019 was the ban for salary history. So what we knew was that employers were asking individuals, how much did you make previously, so that we can determine how much you will make in the future with us. And we saw that that was disproportionately affecting women, specifically women of color who have been underpaid for so long. And one of the statistics that I like to share is that for Latina women, because of the pay disparities, it is said that I will receive $1 million less throughout my life. So imagine if we just continue to build on what we've made in the past, that gap just widens. So that's a policy that is illegal, and the Pay Equity Coalition has been having conversations with employers to ensure that they are aware of the fact, and individuals. It is illegal for someone to ask you how much you made in the past.
So how can every woman who's watching this today become a part of this?
Right now, the Pay Equity Coalition is talking about salary range disclosure, because what we talked about, right, and what Sasha mentioned was that we know that this is in the hiring practices of individuals without really knowing the impact. So one of the things that we're pushing for is transparency in salary range. And what we're hoping is that every organization, every company post what their salary range is. That seems really simple, but it has a lasting impact on families. Because if a woman comes in to a position that has a salary range of 100 to 120,000, she didn't know that. And when the negotiation starts and she says, you can give me $70,000, the employer maybe might give her 75 and she feels like she's won. But in fact, the range was much higher. So we're just looking for transparency so that everyone, specifically our families, are supported in the community.
We just feel it's really important to keep the spotlight on women and to keep the pressure on elected officials to not forget about us, and specifically not forget about women of color, and make sure that when these days happen, the focus is kept on us. And so reaching out to your elected officials to tell them, yes, there's a lot of really important things going on, but the amount of money I'm bringing home really is what's most important and really matters to me. And I just want to make the point that when you're building your salary, it also contributes to things like retirement and benefits. And so you're cheated out of that throughout your whole life as someone who's entering the workforce as a young adult. If I'm not starting at the salary I should be starting at, as Ursula said, we're highlighting salary disclosure before you're entering a job. If I'm cheating myself out of, say, $10,000 in my first job, the next job, it just keeps building, and I'm cheated out of a lifetime of earnings. And then I might not be able to retire when I want to. I might not be able to pay for my kids' college like I want to. It really affects everything.
While passing those laws is vital, it is vital. There's another part to this. Laws affect people. So if you are a person who is in a position to hire someone, or you're in a position to write a budget, you know, a lot of times some of us think, well, the numbers are the numbers. The numbers are determined by people, and we can fix those numbers. And I think that it's up to all of us to really think about how are we equitably compensating our staff. And I'm saying equitably compensating because it goes beyond pay. How are women of color advanced through positions? How are women of color allowed to attain extra training to be able to get to that next level of pay or advancement? So there's levels to this, but I think that we need to look internally to each of our organizations and how do we allow structural racism and structural sexism to affect people, especially Black women today, particularly Black women, from getting that higher salary. It's up to us to really think about this and put our teeth into this.
Ladies, thank you so very much for joining me this morning to talk about this very important issue, something that we need to continue talking about until there is change. Thank you so much, Sasha, Sarah, and Ursula. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Again, to learn more or to get involved with this effort, log on to blackwomenspayequity.com. Have you ever thought about rappelling from a building, say 300 feet tall? When we come back, we'll tell you about the annual Boy Scouts fundraiser and who from NEWS10 NBC will strap up and climb down this Thursday.